So I just wrapped up a client interview with Daan, Accountants CPA in Atlanta. And we recorded this interview to give some tips to other accountants that want to grow their firm faster, don't really know how to do it, or don't really have the time to learn all of the things that they actually need to learn to grow their accounting firm faster. So in this interview, we are going to give away as much value as possible. And I think there were definitely a couple of things that can be so valuable if you are an accountant and you want to grow your firm faster. So let me first quickly introduce myself. My name is Daan. I'm the owner and founder of Accounting Kings. We've worked with over 100 accountants now, mainly in the US, also a couple in Canada, Australia, and the UK, where we help them to actually just grow their firm faster. And it works really well. So let's just quickly dive into the interview. For some context, we've worked with Jabbar now for about 2 months. He attracted a $9,000 client, still has $6,000 in the pipeline, and he closed a couple more other clients, but those were kind of like the main things that were popping out. And he actually has 3 meetings still in the pipeline. So maybe we need to record a second interview about the new results. So yeah, let's just dive into the interview right now.
Okay.
Okay, so we are back with another interview with Jabbar this time, client of Accounting Kings. Can you just maybe introduce yourself, who you are, and what your firm is all about?
Oh yeah. So my name is Jabbar Daniels. I started and run Chester Daniels Tax and Accounting, and we do cloud accounting, client advisory services for small business clients and tax prep on an annual basis as well. And yeah, we're based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and yeah, just growing and doing well.
So yeah, we've been working with each other for 2.5 months now, and you managed to close a $9,000 client and a $6,000 client still in the pipeline. Can you maybe, because you have done quite some advertising in the past, can you maybe, for also the viewers, maybe tell something that you've learned about advertising in the last few years of running your firm?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have been advertising and had some things set up. Of course, there's a big learning curve of kind of how to set up things properly, things like that. So it's kind of set it and forgetting it doesn't usually work all the way sometimes. So that's kind of what led me to Accounting Kings, and then just seeing how things are automated, things are kind of set up properly so that everything flows in the right direction. You're getting those quality leads. Yeah, it's really about the repetitions, of course, and learning the sales process. So over time, you just kind of learn how all of those things just fit together. And then, of course, the actual selling techniques of that face-to-face conversations that you're having when you're trying to close with clients. That learning process is pretty big.
Yeah, so it's all about process indeed, what you say.
Yeah.
And what is the main thing that you have learned from the sales training that we provide, what other accounts can maybe also implement?
Yeah, from the sales training. I think a big thing on that is always following up with the client for sure, or having a follow up with the client. That is something I learned in the past, but I didn't always do. So after the end of that, and after the end of that call, always having another something scheduled so that you don't lose the visibility with the client, or lose the communication with the client. I think that's a huge one, and I know it's a small piece, but very important piece. Like I said, I've done it when it comes to like actually working with clients. I like to do that, and it also kind of applies to when you're trying to sell too, because you want to keep top of mind with them, even if it's just following up with them, things like that. But also, there are some things in there that are very helpful, like not not giving price on the first call. Sometimes I find myself doing that anyway, just because ripping the band-aid off of something, especially if they may not be a good fit. But if you really want to like kind of drive it in and having those multiple touches, sometimes that's a very good thing to
Yeah.
do. I think some other things that stood out to me were some of the pauses, like having throwing out some questions and then pausing and waiting for them to respond. Things like that were really helpful in learning.
Yeah, and with those pauses, also for like the people watching, if you ask a question and they answer, and you have a little pause in there, sometimes they just give
Yeah.
out a little bit more information, and that's typically the
Hmm.
info that
Yeah.
they find kind of that are not entirely comfortable 100% to share. But that's actually the
Right.
reason why they are on the phone with you, because they're maybe sometimes a little bit embarrassed about how their books are
Hmm.
structured, that they didn't file tax for 2 years, and that
Hmm.
information is like actually the most important info. So now
Yeah.
That's a great thing actually that you said there. So
Yeah.
how did your sales process itself change? Like what was it before and how is it different now? Because you managed to close a $9,000 client and we spent about 2,000 on it. So that's that's a pretty positive ROI. So how did that change?
The actual sales process in particular, like I mean with clients and things like that. How did that change? I think it just kind of gave me the like just being more intentional about it versus I think that was the big thing because of course seeing all the materials, seeing the process, and then understanding like because of course there's lots of follow-ups and things like that to make sure that you're staying on top of it and ready. But seeing all those things made it a little more intentional in that sales conversation that you're having with the client. I think in the past I had just kind of having so many of them sometimes, and then you just kind of go through the motions a lot of time, especially when you don't have any guidance on it and you're just kind of formulating it yourself. But having some more like guidance things makes you a little more intentional about that process, making sure you're like, okay, you're knowing the metrics behind it, like okay, I had this many calls and okay, I've closed this many or whatnot, being more intentional about that. I think that's the big thing. And then as far as talking to those folks,
Yeah.
being intentional about those follow-ups, being intentional about how how this conversation is going. Am I leading it? Are they leading it? When to ask certain questions and things like that. Those things that became intentional about, I think, helped to close clients that we did.
Yeah. And it's also if you have like an intentional and structured sales process, it becomes predictable, but you can also make changes, get the
Yep,
data, and then actually see what works best. So
exactly.
that's something that actually it's really important. I
Yeah.
was wondering what was because before we recorded, I was asking like, do you have feedback on the program, but you didn't really have any. What was what was something that you really liked about it that you think it was like the most valuable thing about Accounting Kings that other accountants can maybe also profit from?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I think the what I really enjoyed about it was like it was just it's very hands off in a way because you don't have to learn all of the things that go into the ads, all the things that are kind of behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about those things. You don't have to worry about automating anything. You don't have to worry about setting up those processes because they're already just there for you. If it's really just about growth and you already and you don't have anything in place, it's like it's perfect because all those things are set up for you, and then you just need to sell at that point. Of course, you have to have the operation, you got to deliver the right service, all those things. But the best thing about it, I think, was just that it was easy to use and easy to get lead if you because getting leads is tough in the beginning stages of any accounting business is hard. Like people are really looking for those clients. Like where do you start? Where do they come from? It's hard to get referrals if you don't have any, right?
Yeah.
So it's that aspect of it was great. Also, the ease of the CRM tool that's used. I think it was very intuitive and pretty easy to follow. Of course, you got the tutorials out there. Everything was pretty much laid out to where it's just pretty smooth, and then you get I think calls start coming in right away. I mean within the first like I think for sure the first week or so there was already like lined up calls and things like that, so
Yeah.
yeah, very
Yeah,
good. I enjoyed it.
that went pretty fast actually also with your account. So what's next? What's next for the firm?
Yeah, what's next for the firm? So, as I said, like I said, right now we're working on just, well, we have built out systems and processes and really just trying to continue optimizing those and just, building things out. We did just hire a part-time employee, so that's been a big move. So just shifting from like kind of doing everything myself and just kind of flying by the seat of my own pants or whatever you call it, that to now having to manage processes for folks that are working under me. So that's big. This will be the first year going into that. Yeah, we're just signed like I think maybe five new clients this within the last like 30 days. So it's been kind of moving things are moving really fast right now at the end of the year. So next year should be, and it's tax season coming. So we should be probably on pace to grow by, I want to say at least like if with the additional revenues that we just signed on the last month, probably a good like 30 to 40% increase in revenue over this next year. So it should be good. And that's not including like who knows what the growth, I don't know what the growth on tax season is going to look like. That's just the
Yeah.
monthly revenue that we have secured. So should be
Yeah,
very good.
that's also the thing because if you're advertising, it's very easy to also say no to people that you don't want. And
Yeah.
this way, of course, you get better like ideal clients, but it's also the case that the referrals that you will get will be from higher quality too, because
Yeah,
people are always referring the same type of people most often.
exactly.
So that's
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 very
something
true.
that I see with a lot of accountants that they in the beginning they take on every client that they get their
Yeah,
hands on, and which is a good thing to do because of course
yeah,
if you're starting out you need to get all the revenue
yeah,
you can. But at some point they grow pretty fast from referrals, but they're just not really happy with the type of clients. So that's
yeah,
something that marketing can also do for firms. And you've also
yeah,
been
absolutely.
marketing yourself, right? Before you
Hmm.
partnered with us.
Hmm.
What was the reason that you decided to outsource it?
I think going back to the whole like set it and forget it thing, I think that was the reason why I decided to try outsourcing it. Because I had a lot of things set up and they were working for the most part, but they weren't optimized, I would say. So it was kind of like, hey, this is working, but I do and a lot of them are like, oh, it's just tax folks or things, maybe clients I didn't always want, and I'm not tracking enough to know what's the percentage of those people that I want versus the ones I don't, and things like that. So I think that what kind of was what led me to outsourcing. So I gave the outsourcing a try, and then I did learn a lot from the outsourcing, of course, because some of it was that, hey, I actually already had a lot of things in place. I just didn't really utilize them to the
Yeah,
fullest. And I think that's what led me to say, oh, okay, I learned a lot from here and I have all these things in place. I just need to
yeah,
pay better attention to them. So that was kind of, what I learned, a big part of what I learned. But yeah, a lot of things are in place already. I just had them there. And then I decided to outsource, which worked out. It paid off, of course, because it did land clients from it. And then I think another thing, while having both in place, essentially, I started landing other clients that were from my other marketing sources. So I was like, oh well, I mean, that is still working.
yeah.
I just need to still make it more optimal. And of course, the Accounting Kings definitely there were some things that I definitely learned from it in order to apply to what I already had in place. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
I actually think that
yeah,
that's kind of like the golden nugget from the interview, like systemizing stuff and system
yeah.
thinking. Because
Hmm.
that's something that we have used systems with everything. Like with I even have systems for waking up and going to bed. I have systems.
Yeah, you
And
should, yeah.
everybody almost has. If you think about it, it's
Yeah,
the same thing that
yeah.
you always do. But if you put it on paper and you really start optimizing every single system in a
Mhm.
system in a system, and you track
Mhm.
everything, then at some point it becomes so optimized that it's kind of like you can also very easily outsource it. It's
Mhm.
this is ideal, and that's exactly what you said. You have the systems now, so now it's just time to increase capacity, build more systems,
Yeah,
and kind of
right.
repeat the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. I will
Awesome.
throw a little asterisk out there too. I did do a systems and processes course this year that helped to learn how to do that because I didn't have anything in place, especially when I was considering hiring an employee. I'm like, well, I can't hire anybody 'cause I don't have anything in place for them to actually follow things. So
Yeah.
I was able to build out systems and learn how to do that and work those muscles in order to, and then I think this all falls into the marketing things too. Like, oh, I mean, I know how to build these systems and stuff. I can actually apply these things to that. I just hadn't done it. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're
Awesome.
right about that. You can systemize everything as long as if it's a repetitive thing, I mean, you can
Mhm.
systemize it.
Yeah. Awesome. So my last question is, as you've been working with us, you got great results. Would you recommend other accountants to give us a shot?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially someone just getting started who doesn't have maybe the client based starting out, or it's there, but it's not, they're trying to get it to the next level. They don't have, marketing resources to utilize. Then yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer, especially if you're just like one person, maybe a couple, and yeah, you don't have the resources or the time and resources to actually build these, learn and build these things out. Highly recommended for firms in that situation, just because it's a practice thing, it's a learning thing on how to do it. If you don't get in front of a lot of people and try to sell them, of course, you won't learn how to do that. So definitely, and then of course, sitting down or having these in place and getting them on your calendar with the Counting Kings was very helpful. So definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I hope you learned a lot of things about the interview. It's mainly just system thinking and just systemizing your sales. If you don't have a set system for your sales, it's very hard to outsource in the future, but it's also very hard to actually measure and improve. And without measurement, you cannot really improve systems. So I hope again that you had so much value from this interview. And if you are an accountant, you want to grow your firm faster, you rather want to work with maybe business owners or wealthier individuals for high revenue tax and accounting services, but you don't really have the time or the expertise to do all sales and marketing yourself, there's a link in the description. You can click on it and you're going to see how I can potentially work with you. We don't profit until you do, so I know for sure it works, but you don't have to. I make these videos just because I like to help accountants, because I know that you have a great service, you can provide a lot of value, but you just don't really know how to find enough people to provide this value to. So again, thank you so much for the video. Like if you got some value from it. If you have specific questions, ask it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, because there are way more videos coming. And of course, you don't want to miss any. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.